Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we are talking springtime jerkbait fishing. We're going to talk about different baits for different water conditions, when to throw them, how to throw them, so that you can catch bigger bass this spring. We're going to do this a little bit differently today. I grabbed my favorite jerkbait boxes. I'm gonna pop them open and walk you guys through some of my favorite baits out of each box. What we're really gonna focus on today is how and when to fish these baits properly, more than the baits themselves. But first we'll run through the baits. So opening up the first box, the baits that stand out to me in here, Stacy 90, Lucky Craft deeper diving bait is a winner. Both of these. So the regular pointer in any one of these colors, I don't even care which one. That's a pointer 100. We probably have more epic underwater footage of the pointer 100 than any other jerkbait. And my biggest bass that I ever caught was caught on a pointer 100. I'm sorry, not my biggest bass ever. My biggest jerkbait bass ever was a 12-3 on a pointer 100 out here on Clear Lake. This is a pointer extra deep. That's a bait I started playing with to get down super deep. It's a large profiled bait, gets super deep, gets big bites. I really like that one as well. That's probably it out of that box. I mean, there's all sorts of fun stuff and they're discontinued baits, but those are the ones that I really fish the most out of there. This one is a mixed box as well. Megabass Canadas, a great big megabass, is a huge standout. You guys know that. The re-range, Jackal re-range in both the 110 and the big one, the 130, are both awesome springtime baits. Flash pointers. And the flash pointer, I throw in both the 100, this is a 100, it's tied into a bunch of other baits, but flash pointer 100 is a small bait and it smashes them. There it comes. I catch a ton of big bass on that guy, a ton. And then also in the 115, that one there, all of those there. Flash pointer, both sizes, amazing. Amazing jerkbait. And then this one I think is all Megabass. Megabass, I've started getting hooked because why not get hooked, right? So the 110 plus 2s, we talked a little bit about that, a couple of them there. 110 plus 2, that great big bill, those just came out. Again, super deep diver playing down there in that same range as that pointer 100 XD. Difference is that pointer 100 XD is like a big, aggressive, loud bait. The 110 plus 2 is more of a finessier presentation down there in those depths. Big fish catcher for sure. 100 plus 1s is what I was using before the plus 2s, another awesome bait. Regular 100s, and then the little guys. I love these little guys as well. These are gonna hang right there with that flash pointer 100. It's a 110 Junior. They smash. They absolutely love them. What I really want to focus though on today, guys, let's talk about size and colors of baits and then how to fish them. You want to fish, I think, kind of the two extremes before you fish the middle. And a lot of people would do the opposite. A lot of people have a favorite jerkbait. It's a mid-sized jerkbait. They spend their time there. I spend a lot of time throwing those giant baits, that re-range 130, that large Canada. Used to throw a lot of that Lucky Craft pointer 128. That re-range 130 kind of took that over for me. And then on the small end, that little tiny flash pointer 100. Again, these little 110 Juniors. That small end. I fish those two extremes first. Because what I'm looking for with a jerkbait is not that run-of-the-mill mediocre bite. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not where the value of a jerkbait is to me. Can you go down the bank and just catch fish? Absolutely. Can you go down a bank and flip a Senko and catch fish? And then turn around and come through with a jerkbait and catch the same fish? Probably. Does that make a jerkbait special? Nope. Springtime, right now, let's get down to it. The jerkbait catches giants in a way that no other bait that we've talked about lately can. It has a triggering effect, much like a giant swim bait. Huge open water glide baits. They have this triggering effect where a bass has to come look at them. They'll travel incredible distances just to come follow that bait and look at it with no intention of eating it. But it's a core response. They have to do it. They come out and look and they give themselves up, and you know where they live now. And sometimes they bite. Well, a jerkbait also gets a core response. It's a different response. It gets a triggering response. When a bait comes in front of a bass's face and hovers there, they just focus on it. When it makes a sharp movement after that, bass have a core response to lash out, and they suck in water when they do it. Well, they also suck in that jerkbait. So the jerkbait is very unique in that it can actually trigger a bass into biting even when the bass doesn't want to. That is why they're so deadly in the winter time. When you do that super slow retrieve, rip, and then sit there, and you count to 5 or 10 or even longer, and then go, twitch, and start counting again. Twitch, count to 10 again. Super slow. It's because that bait's just hovering there in front of those fish, and the fish don't want to move, but it twitch comes closer. Next twitch, they're on it. So springtime, here's the important thing to understand in spring. And we've talked about some of this before. In spring, these fish are making their move towards the spawn. You guys know that. They're gonna feed up on the way. Usually you've got a wave of males that goes first, followed by a wave of females. That's typically how it works. But once they all sort of get where they're headed, and they're up there just feeding and waiting for the water temperature to be right, you can end up with these mixed schools where there's giant fish mixed in with these little tiny fish. Little tiny buck males in with big old giant females, something you don't typically see throughout the rest of the year. Well, remember that triggering thing? Well, there's also something called the schooling mentality. When a group of bass get together, their behavior gets crazier. Because when one starts going crazy, the next one goes crazy, and all of a sudden they're all going crazy. The value to you in the spring is that if you can take a jerkbait around a school of fish that has giants in it, and you can trigger one fish, whether he's a little tiny fish or a giant fish, if you can get one to bite, and you get that school going, and you throw back in there, and you get another one, back in there, you get another one, all of a sudden this feeding frenzy happens. And suddenly these 7 and 8 and 10 and 14 pound bass, these giant fish that would never go out of their way to eat a little tiny bait, get caught up in the feeding frenzy, and they eat that jerkbait. And you catch literally the biggest bass you have ever seen on a little tiny jerkbait. That's what happened when I caught that 12-3. That fish ate a pointer out of a school of small bass. The fish were this big, and all of a sudden, here comes this giant with a big bucket mouth up out of the water with that pointer in the corner on a jerkbait rod on 8-pound fluorocarbon. It was a wild ride, but it was because we triggered a school and got them feeding. So the jerkbait, I fished the two ends of the spectrum first because I'm not trying to just get bites. I'm out there throwing that giant jerkbait, trying to catch a giant bass. If that's not working, I go to my tiny jerkbaits to try and trigger any bass. Little finessey jerkbait, fished aggressive. Snap, snap, let it sit. Snap, 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 let it sit. Get that first one and get right back in there because you're trying to get things happening. Does that make sense? If that's not working for you and you're just on a regular old jerkbait bite, get into that mid-range size, you'll do great. But start on those two ends of the spectrum. Now color is something we haven't focused a lot on. I typically tell you keep it really simple. I'm going to tell you that again. I'm not telling you need all these different colors of baits that I have sitting here, but I am telling you the 2 places I want you to go this year is really natural and really aggressive. So you notice as I'm picking up these baits, these are the same, these are the same color, just a black shad, real natural profile. This is Ghost Pro Blue, one of my all-time favorite colors. Super natural, really clear. Look at this one. Super clear. And then right here in the same box, we got this guy. Or these. I mean, just bright, bold colors. Here's the idea. Super natural, ultra natural colors can fool them. Really aggressive colors, and that can even just be white, but really aggressive colors get them to react. So 2 different things. Again, we're talking about 2 different sizes, right? Talking about going out there just looking for that big one with a big bait, just throwing that small bait trying to get anything triggered. Same deal with color. Super clear, natural, trying to fool those fish into biting. Slow presentation, snap, let it sit. Or we're talking about getting bold, bright, aggressive color, even in clear water. Rip that bait hard, let it pause. Rip, pause, rip, pause. Super bright, bold color, trying to get a reaction. It's not about fooling them. They're not fooled by some giant piece of chartreuse plastic coming at their face. They're startled and then they react. They're aggressive towards it. Both end up in that fish's mouth. Both can be a player for you. So you want to be prepared with both. I love those bright, bold chartreuses, those bright white colors, those sharp, aggressive colors. And then I also like that ultra natural, finessey approach too. Both can be great. We upgrade our hardware on all of them. We've talked to you guys about that before. Down in the video description, I'm going to link you, let's say 5 or 6 of my favorite baits, as well as the colors. We'll also link you the hooks and the split rings that we upgrade, because as you guys have seen from the underwater footage, it is almost mind-blowing how these fish can eat a jerkbait and kick it back out before you can even react. Literally faster than you can react. In and out before you can swing. The result is that if the hooks aren't sharp enough to hook on their own, that fish is gone. You're not even part of the party. You are reliant on your hooks to catch on their own when the fish hits it. So sharp hooks is critical. And then with a jerkbait, it's also really critical that you don't mess up the action of the bait. You need them suspending. You don't want a fast sinker or a fast floater. So it's really important. Hook size matters. We use that Aaron Martin's Finesse Nano Treble almost exclusively because they're insanely sharp and they don't mess up the float of these baits as long as you match the right size to the bait. Now rods is the other thing that's critical. When you work a jerkbait, here is the deal. I've talked to you guys about this rod. This is my favorite rod of all time for a jerkbait. X-Pride 610 medium. I pair it with an Aldebaran MGL, 12-pound fluoro. That is just my main gig. I also throw on braid deleter, and I throw on different size fluoros, but if I could only have one, it'd just be 12-pound fluoro. And that's kind of changed over the last couple of years, but it's just incredibly consistent. Now, how you work that jerkbait and the rod is critical. That's why I've got a handful of rods laying here. The jerkbait must make sharp snapping motions and then pause. And then snap, 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 pause. If there's any swimming in between, it destroys it. We've seen it over and over and over and over again in the underwater footage. If that thing goes ch 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 and that bass cues up and then the bait swims, they just bail off. They don't care at all. They just let it go. If you do that, and then mess it up, that's game. So it's critical that you have sharp, aggressive movements. Rod is everything. We try to tell you guys that there's a wide variety of rods that you can use. We really try and lean hard on that. You know, I like a jig rod between this length and this length, roughly this power. These are my favorites, but you can use a variety of rods. Jerk baiting is going to be that category where I tell you the right rod is critical. The reason why is that action is so key and it's so rare. A proper jerkbait rod is so rare. What you have to have is an extra fast tip. Extra fast tip. But then you have to have enough give in the whole rest of the rod to absorb the fight, because you can't hook them on an extra fast heavy rod with these little tiny hooks. You're gonna lose. And if you get them on a rod that's limber all the way through, that's wonderful, except it's limber in the tip too, and you can't get the sharp movements, because when you go to pull, the rod has to load first, and that's where that swim happens. You can't get that sharp snapping motion that you need. So truly a jerkbait is the one place where if you just want to fiddle with jerkbaits, do your thing. A crankbait rod can work. A lighter Texas rig rod can work. You are going to catch fish. But if you're going to dedicate yourself to jerkbait fishing, it's one of the rare categories where I tell you, you need to dedicate yourself to a jerkbait rod. My favorite rod, unfortunately, has become incredibly hard to get. That X-Pride 610 medium has been sold out for the better part of a year. However, with Shimano, they carry that down through their lines. Corrado 610 medium, exact same action, exact same, is in stock. It's a less expensive rod than the X-Pride, weighs a little bit more, but the action is right there, and that one will totally work. I mean, paired up with an SLX, you're talking a lot less money, exact same action, it'll do it. And then, you know, anytime we get sucked into anything, Tim and I just go crazy, right? So I go through these cycles where I'm super into a bait and then I'm not. You know, I'm all about throwing wake baits, and then the next year I want to throw frogs, and I don't care about throwing a wake bait. The next year I want to throw something else. I want to go punching. Well, the last year or two, I have been back on the jerkbait big time, just having a ball, and as such, I always get caught up. So I've tried like almost every jerkbait rod on the market from almost every brand. I got the X-Pride, I loved it so much. Cc got the Zodius, then I got the Corrado, we got an SLX, just to try them. You guys, if you were hanging with us in the fall, you guys remember exactly when I picked up this one. St. Croix Legend X. That is a high dollar rod paired to a Chronarch MGL, but it's an awesome jerkbait rod. I really, really liked it. It's got that rare action. It works extremely well. And then another one that I have not talked about, because I just recently started playing with it, but these are the standouts. These are the ones that I really have liked. Megabass Levante. Cc and Tim both have got Destroyer 110 specials, and they both love them. Awesome rod, but the Levante comes in at a lower price point. This is the new Levante. This is the 6'11" jerkbait special, and I was very, very impressed with this one too, at a much lower price point, and it's killer jerkbait rod. This one hangs there with those as well. But like I said, I have been rehooked by the jerkbait bug and trying all kinds of different rods and line combos and baits. I mean, boxes and boxes and boxes of jerkbaits. But the reason why I've done that is because it is such a fun way to catch them. It's a riot in both the spring and the fall. It works all year round, but it's a riot early and late in the season. And then most importantly, you can catch freak size bass on normal size tackle, and that is fun. I love catching monster bass. I like catching them on monster swim bait tackle, but I enjoy catching them a lot more fun when I hook them on a little 6'10" medium and 8 or 10 or 12 pound fluoro and little tiny number 6 or number 8 hooks, and you are just in for the battle of your life. But if you've got your gear set right, you're working that bait right, when that bite comes, you can land those fish on a really light tackle. One other thing, and I've mentioned this in the past, I fish with a pretty heavy drag, all things considered. It's pretty tight. I do that so that I can get a good hook set. But what I've learned is that what I do when I'm fishing it that tight, because if I just had this, and this is what I tried to fight a big bass on, I'd bend out my hooks every single time. But that key, that first hit, that hook set is so critical to me. What I do is I keep it tight. The second I set and that rod bows up and I feel this is not an 8-inch bass, I reach up, quarter turn. Right away, first thing I do. So I've got that drag set, reach up, quarter turn. There goes that line. That quarter turn seems to be the perfect transition from stick the hook in them, let them run. And I don't break off when I do that. So keep that in mind. You can overturn and end up with just line flying off the spool and you're gonna lose that fish. So don't just grab up there and just yank on it. Get used to having it set right. Quarter turn, they can take line. You'll find that perfect balance where you can put a hook in a big bass, you can get it buried right, even in that hard material, but then you can back it off and they can run and you can get those fish. Guys, jerkbait fishing is so much fun. Get out there, it's springtime, you need to be on the water, have a ball. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you more than you know. We'll talk to you soon.